Happy back to school, happy almost fall. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Economic Development Commission meeting of September 8th. To get started, I'd like to review the minutes from our August meeting. If there are any.
Move to accept.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you, everybody. Okay, so we have an exciting update to bring to the group this morning to kick things off. I don't know if the city councilor wants to share the update.
Well, on Monday, we first approved the second reading of the ordinance, and then we broke the rules and voted to
Suspended.
I wanted to break the rules.
These aren't
I like that better. And move to accept the third reading. So it is done deal. So
Excellent.
you have an ordinance. We have an ordinance.
I feel better.
So appreciate the council's
Speak
quick.
for everyone here.
That was great. Appreciate the support. And thanks especially to Tom for helping craft that language to get that rolling. So onward. Nice to have that formalized.
May I actually make a suggestion?
Sure.
There's an appointment in front of the mayor now for appointment to the EDC. I would like to ask the city clerk to look at that because that's replacing Alan's term. Alan's term ended in '25, and that's the year that had the most people renewing. And maybe we can move up the rotation business a little bit by changing that appointment
To a full 4-year term.
or something
Yeah,
different.
we put term language, you put term language
We
in
have
the
to
ordinance.
look at it again
Yeah,
and
to see how it actually works.
Might rotate.
Yeah,
But
okay.
I would like to see if maybe we can get the rotation fixed a little faster if we do that.
Okay. I think we can take a look at that. Is that before the September 18th council meeting?
Yes.
Wouldn't the mayor have to decide?
Well, no, I think, it's part of our ordinance to correct the rotation. And I just think that there's an opportunity here to take a look at that and see if this can help that
Okay.
without, affecting less people who are here now.
Okay. Great. Yeah, well, good suggestion. We'll take a look at that and understand with the new language how that may or may not be able to be addressed. Okay. So next up, we've got our land use liaison. The assistant mayor can't be here this morning, but Bob, do you want to give us the update? I think you met after our last month's meeting.
Yes. So, Land Use Committee. The last meeting, 90% of what we did was reviewing a list of properties that might be able to help expand the Gateway District. And that included properties along Route 1 Lafayette Road basically from the Rhine Line down to the traffic circle. And kind of looking at, right now Gateway is one property deep, so we looked at properties that, 2 properties deep, and what properties there might be good candidates for housing development. So we also looked at Heritage Avenue, West Road, Constitution, Morona, and down the Spalding Turnpike, and then Commerce Way. And there was discussion about actually changing the office research zone to Gateway. So office research has always been one of those zones that doesn't allow a whole lot except kind of medical office. So anyway, there was sort of a first run at that, and I think, at least personally, I didn't want to see any changes to Heritage Avenue and industrial land. I don't think we should lose any of that or potentially lose it in the future if it's rezoned and, turning an industrial building lot into housing. I don't think that's appropriate. And I think that was pretty much the consensus of the committee. But other than that, there are a lot of properties that would lend themselves to, further development and potentially housing. So, next, maybe, I don't know if we'll have it in the next meeting, but perhaps the following, we'll have a map, which I can distribute. I'm happy to send out the list of properties if people want to see that. But that's sort of a first list. Nothing's been decided yet. But if you think I should send that out, I can send
Yeah.
you.
Is it available on the land use minutes or?
It should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I can just.
Yeah, whatever works.
See you.
If I get it, I can
distribute
share it.
that.
What would the timing be on making those changes? How soon?
Good question. I don't know that we have a time constraint or limit. But my guess is we would be through this process in a couple months, maybe 3. Okay. And then, so the city council takes it from there. So, and who knows by then who will be on the city council. So,
Great. Yeah, good update. I'd like to see that map. I think that's interesting.
and we don't have the map yet.
Yeah, or the list of properties.
Yeah.
As a start.
I'll send it over now.
And thank you.
Yeah, that was, like I say, the gist of the meeting. So,
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear the consensus on the industrial land. I think that's been the sentiment of the commission as well. So,
yeah.
okay, great. Thanks, Bob. Next up, we've got Ben.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Good morning. A couple things to share, some upcoming things that I think you would want to know about. We have 2 award events coming up this fall. Normally we would do our annual awards, our business of the year kind of awards at our annual dinner, but this year's annual dinner was a little different, so we opted out of that. So we'll have a luncheon special for those award recipients. That's going to be at the end of October. Those nominations are being taken now, so if you know a small business or a large business that is worthy of some recognition, please, there's a nomination process through our website, so please feel free to share those nominations. We also have a Collaborator Year, a Partner Organization Award, and a Volunteer of the Year Award as well. New to us, and something we're very excited about and have been trying to put together for a number of years now is on the 8th of November, we will be kicking off a series that recognizes the women in the business community and their leadership, and that's something that has kind of gone under celebrated in our community for a while. So we'll be kind of starting what will be a every other month series, starting with an awards luncheon that will be followed up with 4 lunch events that will feature the winners of those awards. So they will speak and share their story, and it really should bring the women of the business community together in a great way. We also have a couple other things coming up on the 19th of this month, just a little over a week and a half away or so. We have our Small But Mighty Business Expo. It's out at Cisco Brewery. It's a great event there's about 30 local businesses that will have small booths there showcasing what they do and products they make and services they offer. A couple nonprofits sprinkled in the mix. So it's a fun little networking event after work on the 19th out at Cisco. And then I extending an invite, because it's an open invite to everyone, but the Davenport Hotel, I don't know if you've seen that, is having their grand opening celebration on the 13th. That's a pretty small boutique hotel the Simonis family has put together with a historical renovation, a very well-done historical renovation of a property to convert it into a boutique hotel with about, I think it's 8 or so rooms. Very well done. Also, come by the afternoon of the 13th. I think it's like 3:30 to 7 or 6 over there to check that out. That would be great. We have 2 new networking event series that we kicked off in the last 2 weeks. Last week, we had a coffee networking event with the Business Alliance for People of Color. BAPOC, Will Arvello, and Latanya Wallace, many of you probably know those names, spearhead that group. It's a statewide organization that advocates and supports the folks of color in the business community, and they we had a great partnership event with them. Had about 40 people gather for some coffee to connect, and it was a great morning, a lot of fun. And then similarly, last night at the end of the workday yesterday, from 5 to 7, we had our first networking event with Seacoast Outright, supporting the LGBTQ+ community. So that was another great celebration. Sean was at both of those events. Thank you for being there, Sean. And really great to bring that community together in connection to the Chamber so that everyone knows that you're welcome at the Chamber Collaborative, and we're very proud of that. In addition to that, we did have a little dinner in partnership with the 400th back a couple weeks ago. Seems like forever ago, but that came together very well. I know many of you were there, but it was a really fun evening, despite a little bit of misting rain for a second, but it held off, and we had a lot of fun. So thank you all for your support and the support of the city to help pull that all together. I think that'll go down as a memorable event for years to come. So that's it from the Chamber. Been a busy summer for us, and looks like a very busy fall. I will just kind of comment. Seems like Labor Day was very busy in town. A lot of people have been asking about that. Seemed like a very busy weekend. Hotels were fully occupied. The restaurants were busy. Shopping seemed to do very, very well. So it seems like it was a great kind of end to the summer season. Things continue to be going strong. I've talked to several hoteliers, and they have lots of good small to medium meetings that will keep them busy throughout the fall. So it seems like the sort of hospitality tourism season is going to be strong this year with good numbers moving into the fall season. So not quite as strong as I think some of them were hoping, but I think that has a lot to do with the weather that we've had. There's like a 48-hour cancellation with no fee window that was taken advantage of a lot this summer. People would look at the forecast and make a decision days beforehand whether or not they wanted to go on their vacation. And I know they've been seeing that around the state, not just here in Portsmouth. I know the White Mountains and Lakes region share the same thing. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Congrats on the 400 dinner. That was probably the most amazing outdoor dining execution any of us will see in our lifetime. So,
The laser light show.
great work.
It was amazing.
Amazing. And someone, I don't know if it was on Facebook or on LinkedIn or if it was the city, someone had a drone above Congress Street with a laser light show going. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a great night.
Very cool. Great. So, Sean, you're up next. Want to share what's going on in your office?
Yes, great. So I definitely want to build on Ben's comments about the new events and the new networking opportunities. I really encourage this group to see those things and look at your calendars and try to stop by. People really, it really supports this effort of being connected, of collaborating. Even if you see a lot of friendly faces or old faces, there's new faces. I mean, I've come out of those meetings, out of those events with some new meetings with small businesses. So that's the opportunity if you want to connect with certainly new folks in Portsmouth. And they're great. And I think it's a strong message. It's a message that is supportive of what we're trying to do and be more outgoing as the EDC, be more visible, be more connected, hear from more businesses. So the missions are aligned, and feet on the ground and smiling faces are always helpful.
Can I just say that those events and most of our events are open to everyone in the business community. I know people have painted us as sort of an exclusionary group, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Those are all our events are open to anyone to participate in, whether you're a member of the chamber or not. So, just want to add that. But thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Where did I leave off? So in addition to the EDC ordinance on Monday, the Arts and Culture Commission ordinance was passed, so there's going to be a standing committee that I'll support once I'm done supporting the short-term committees here this year. But that's pretty exciting because the whole goal is to have a cultural plan by January, and then we'll have a group to shepherd that cultural plan, working with the city and others. But it's great to have an ordinance in place for them. In terms of that cultural plan, we had 730 responses to our online survey, which we were pretty impressed with. It was a slow start, but we finished strong. So we're moving into virtual focus groups and then to on-the-ground focus groups, which it looks like will be the week of October 16th. And again, all with the goal of having a cultural plan to present to City Council by the end of the calendar year. And that lines up nicely with the AFTA results, the America for the Arts results, which we will start to have access to, and then it's just a question of when they're made public. But I think it's going to be great for those two, the plan and the AFTA results, to come together and really paint a clear picture of where we are today while we're launching where we want to go forward in terms of arts and culture and historical efforts. A couple of notes. The shipyard economic impact statement is coming out next week, so watch for that. That's always a good one. And I'm going to say the community picnic, although I haven't memorized the date.
October 1st.
Thank you. October 1st is the next big Portsmouth 400 event, and that'll be an opportunity again to be out, and free event, right? No limitations on how many folks can come to that. So I wanted to get that on your calendars.
Where is that going to be held?
It'll be at Leary Field
Leary
from
Field.
noon to 3. Very kid-friendly, very family-friendly. There will be food available, and you're all welcome to bring a picnic, and we're going to have some organized games, but hopefully some disorganized impromptu games as well.
Awesome.
That's it.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Next up, we've got Councilor Lombardi. You want to share updates since our last?
Yes, thank you. A couple of those ordinances that have passed, we also, I think the big thing is the collective bargaining with the police and fire was a very significant thing for them. It required a supplemental appropriation of $890,000. But what was great about that is that when we made the budget, we asked the city manager to keep it within a certain range, which she did, in fact, below that range. And even with this additional funding for the collective bargaining, it's still within that range. So we felt good about that. Everyone was very excited about that, and it was a good thing. The other thing I just want to bring up is the NHDES award to the Public Works and for the Pierce Island treatment plant. It's a significant award and something to be very proud of. So I don't have a lot of other things. I don't know if city manager has anything else that she wants to bring.
I think you hit the highlights.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. So I think that brings us now to what has been the meat of our conversation for the last few months, but you should have received and hopefully had a chance to review the draft Word version of what we've been discussing in our recent meetings, and feel like we've captured everything, including all the feedback that we've received, or much of the feedback we've received from some public input and the discussions that we've had here. So thank you to those who sent some clarifying comments, and for all the thoughtful discussion that we've had really to date. So at this point, I would entertain any further discussions or questions that folks have, if any, and then otherwise would certainly entertain a motion, if folks are confident and comfortable in moving this forward and submitting to the council the recommendations that we've got outlined here, so. Tom?
Before the motion, I would suggest that we have a brief, open public comment on this before we take a vote. I know there's at least one person here who has an interest in it, so I don't know if you want to talk, Kevin, or not, or?
I read it yesterday. I don't really have much to say. I'm just going to have to.
Okay, well, no, it's up to you. I just, before we take the vote, because this was posted this week, I just
Sure.
thought anybody from the public who wants to comment on this version ought to have an opportunity to do that.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Counselor?
I know I sent this to you, and I guess I want to say it again. I think that this is an opportunity for the city to demonstrate leadership in environmentally sound practices, and I just wonder if we could insist on sustainable practices on city property for this.
Sure.
And that's a question or a suggestion or out for comment.
Sarah?
My recommendation, given how much input has gone into this, is that if you or Assistant Mayor Kelly, when taking this forward to the council, could add your additional feedback or commentary on what you might like the council to consider in addition, I would recommend that as opposed to inserting that from an EDC perspective into the proposal.
I think that was my intention, but I wanted to bring it up here.
Yeah, I do totally support in encouraging sustainable practices as part of the adoption.
Good suggestion. I think with the design standards that we have, I wasn't exactly sure how we would capture that beyond kind of the spirit of it. So my sense was it's really a broader discussion if there's a way that the council might be able to factor that in. I'm certainly not briefed on a lot of the conversations you guys have had on sustainability. The council, I know there have been many, but good suggestion. Tom?
I just have one thought on it. I know when this was discussed at the council in the past, the path to this seemed to be a discount in the fee in order to adopt a recycling concept. I'd be more inclined to say, because it's city property, we should just require it instead of, dealing away the fee.
That's my thought.
Great. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay. Quiet group. Hopefully that's reflective of all the conversation we've had to date. Appreciate it. So at this point, if we're ready to submit to the council, I would certainly entertain a motion to move these recommendations as detailed within the document that was most recently circulated. We'll go with this draft, which does have one minor clerical change stipulating written consent annually by abutting businesses. Just want to make that clear. I believe that's the only change that has been documented since what was posted to the website and circulated Tuesday. So having said that,
I move we approve this draft and submit it to the city council.
thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Ann? Okay. So at this time, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Thank you very much. I believe we'll be able to submit this in time for the September 13th deadline for presentation on the 18th, and we'll plan to be there in person to underscore the content on a lot of the fee discussion and some of the changes to what's in place this year as part of that. It's available to the council for any questions that they might have.
So Phil, just to clarify, in terms of the process, it'll be presented to City Council, and at that point, the EDC has completed its task that was requested to do so.
That's my understanding.
Right. And then City Council will do
Whatever they do.
as they do.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so, yes.
Procedurally, the idea would be to put this in the very beginning of the agenda under presentations and recognitions of our volunteer committee reports. So we're going to call this a committee report.
Great.
And take it up first thing.
Okay.
That's
Fantastic.
the goal.
Thank you.
And Phil, you're going to be there to
Yes.
present it? Okay.
Yeah. And
You're all invited.
Show of force would
yeah,
be great.
You're
I
all
think
invited.
The
The more the merrier.
Yeah, the arts and culture folks, they were in mass, a couple of rows, and it was early on, and it passed, and they were excited, and they left. So it doesn't have to be a long
When is it again?
it'd be September
Monday,
18th.
September 18th.
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Do we have Ben joining us?
We do, but I think we're ahead of schedule.
Schedule
so
moving so quickly.
I don't know if you want to
Well, let's jump ahead.
forward.
Yeah. Do we know what time is he coming? A little after 8?
A little after 8, yeah.
Okay.
I did text him to say we were running ahead.
Sure.
Hopefully we can catch it.
Thank you, Karen.
Well, we have a couple more items on here, and the next we can leave public comment for the end, but I think other business, the vice chair opening, given Alan's official move out of the city and us having this as our first meeting without him, I know there will be an appointment to replace him as an alternate on the board. But for the rest of his term through the end of the year, would certainly enjoy another vice chair sitting alongside me.
You
And
do look lonely on
Yeah.
that side.
it was weird, right? So I thought we might take that up today, and if somebody were interested in joining me and serving through the rest of this year before we take up elections in the new year again, as we do annually at this point, certainly entertain and welcome that. Sarah?
I'd like to move to nominate Commissioner Watson to serve the remainder of Alan's term as vice chair.
Great.
If I can get a second, I can provide some background on why.
Second?
I think Commissioner Watson has demonstrated a lot of leadership in a lot of areas, and as we focus and pass our ordinance and focus more on policy development and outreach, I think Tom is uniquely positioned to help shepherd those initiatives forward for the remainder of Alan's term.
Great. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. I like the Commissioner Watson.
You sound like a Batman character.
That's great. No, I think, Tom, I certainly appreciate that. I think you've really shown leadership on a couple of big pieces of business that we've taken up this year. Any further questions or comments? Otherwise, would
Do you want the job?
Yeah, that's a question. Yeah.
If nominated, I will accept. Yeah. No, I'd be happy to do it.
Good. Excellent.
What is the rest of the term?
Through, I believe we take up elections in January each year. So, a few more months. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thanks, Tom. You want to come join me?
Starting next.
Effective in October.
Okay, great. Feels odd after spending so much airtime the last few months, and I know we'll hear from parking, but anything else going on in the city that would be, we should have on our radar in terms of cultural plan, things upcoming next year that we should be thinking about or on our radar?
I think one suggestion, now that we've had our ordinance passed, it might be good to go back to the work that we did in the offsite last year and take a look at some of the initiatives and maybe prioritize those for focus in 2024. So maybe, Sean, if you have a version or a summary of what we covered
Right.
last year, we could recirculate it and perhaps add it to the agenda for the October meeting.
Great.
I just have a comment.
Sure, Bob.
And this, well, we got the award for the sewage treatment plant, which was great. But I think, I just wanted to say that, there's been a lot of construction through the city this summer. It seems like everywhere you go, you can't get from one end of the city to the other, but I think it's been very well managed. I think they do a great job, DPW, or whoever's doing the DPW, but whomever has done a great job managing that. And, you know, with traffic issues, and particularly on busy streets like Islington and South Street and
Middle.
or Middle Street, you know, I mean, just, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's gone very well. So I think
I'd
they
like to
deserve
comment on
some
that, if I
kudos
could.
for that.
Well, thank you for the kudos, and it's not without its daily challenges, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
I joked with one of the folks in the public works staff. I said, "How am I supposed to get to work with Middle and Islington?" He said, "Karen, we did State Street last year. Don't you remember?"
Yeah.
So there is a method to our madness. State Street was completely wrapped up, so there are ways to move around. There is certainly forethought and planning, and I wanted to give credit to the legal department, who's working with planning and inspections to coordinate all the private work, because every time we approve a project, we have to approve a construction mitigation management plan. And with all the construction going on downtown, everybody's vying for the same space in the road, lay-down area, parking for their
Right.
contractors. So that's been really interesting, and not without its challenges. But we are mindful of the impacts that our work and the private work have on other folks. So we will stay on top of that. We will continue to refine that. But if there's feedback that you all hear directly or indirectly and want to share with Sean and me, we would welcome it. I would say.
Yeah, and Bob, I'll just build on it to say a couple things. One is there is a parking utilization study group that I've been attending. You may hear about that from Ben if we have time. But there's going to be a public input session where the consultant's going to deliver back a report on the parking principles, mostly along the complete streets model, and then there'll be an opportunity to share this out with the public. And you know, parking it's always a lightning rod for conversation, but it does work. And if you step back for where we were 10 years ago to where we are today, it still has challenges, but it is absolutely something that is moving forward. And that builds on a larger point that I want to share with the group. When you talk about the wastewater treatment and the awards that we win and the way we manage construction, the conversations I have with businesses are that this is a city that invests in itself, right? Civic infrastructure. I love that term I learned when I first got here. And it matters to the business community. And even to the point where a small business would say to me, well, the city doesn't do anything for me. And a couple of times I'm like, okay, right, we don't hand out incentives or, tax rebates but what we do is we run this city and we invest in this city, and therefore customers can come here and they want to come here, whether it's visitors or locals or regional folks. So that's, to me, is the conversation when you're out there. If you hear the good, the bad, or the ugly from a business, what are you doing for me? It's all this work we do that maybe doesn't get on their radar because it's not their project or it's not their street or they expect their trash to get picked up. So,
Right.
But we keep this place ready for them to do their business, and I think that's an important message.
Furthering the filling time conversation. There's been some, it was nice to be recognized by the state for the work at the Pierce Island treatment plant. But what we'd like to do is we'd like to have ambassadors for this kind of information. So the Public Works staff's putting on a Wastewater 101 conversation next week on the 13th at 6:30 in the Levinson room of the library, and it's going to talk about everything you need to know. It's going to explain what happens there, what doesn't happen there, the fact that when beaches are closed, it has nothing to do with the way the treatment plant operates. We're going to talk about a lot of things, and I think we're going to dispel myths and break it down. We're going to take that show on the road as well. We're going to talk to the Rotary Club. We're going to talk to the schools. So talk that up with folks that you know, because I think it would be helpful for people to have that walking around knowledge of what is and is not going on.
Will that be posted in some kind of way that when these little strings come up on social media, we can post a link to?
Yes, we will make sure.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Counselor?
Yes, and to Sean's point that we invest in our city. In the New York Times, there was an article about how small communities, and I think we're a small community, even though we are a powerful city, there's a lot of shuttered businesses, and it's a real problem. That's not true here. The small business, there's not a lot of empty storefronts here, and I think it's real kudos to how the city has been helping businesses all along through the general infrastructure, through thoughtful planning. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Great. Yeah, and I think maybe we can have SBDC back. I know we typically hear from them towards the end of the year. I know that's certainly something that is a resource for us that we've shared with startups and other companies, and they just do tremendous work locally and statewide. So I'm sure we're already getting that information out to those who are coming to us for it, but maybe we can get a link to them on our page or something to kind of reinforce that, just a thought. But I know we're due to hear from them at some point. And then one other, just before we have Ben kick us off here, just to comment on our schedule through the rest of the year. I know we had some public input requesting that we investigate cruise ship opportunities in the city, so I think at some point we'd like to hear from the Director of Ports and maybe some stakeholders as part of that discussion now that we're past our outdoor dining, so just to circle back on that point. Great. Well, good morning, Ben. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to share Ben's PowerPoint.
I have paper copies if anybody wants them afterward. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Friday.
Take it away.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to come in and talk about City of Portsmouth Parking and Transportation Division with you guys today. I like to open discussions like this with an understanding of the myriad programs that the Parking and Transportation Division supports through its revenues. So I'll go over a short list of what the division's responsible for, our holistic approach to parking solutions and how we believe the summer of '23 has shaped up, and a few other relevant contemporary topics. For reference, a parking benefit district is a specified geography in which parking revenues are raised and then reinvested back into the district over a wide range of related improvements. So in Portsmouth, that appears in the form of a $2.5 million annual offset to the general fund, transportation planning and engineering support, downtown snow removal and waste removal, school bus support, senior transport, downtown trolley, signs and lines, support for public transit through our coast partners, downtown police detail, school crossing guards, and various others. So services provided or supported by parking revenues realize an annual tax offset. I think it's kind of hidden there, but I think it's $368 per median household this past year. So, in fact, the entire city of Portsmouth is treated as a PVD, the way we run things. Next tab, please. The division's data-driven decision-making is designed to, encourage consumer behavior that supports local business. Available parking inventory supports local business. Safe and inviting walking and bicycling environment supports local business, as does a Park One's philosophy, and pricing strategies that drive demand and turnover support downtown business as well. So the division seeks to offer a combination of distinct, unique parking products while integrating the industry's latest hardware and software technology, parking industry best practices, and following the city's outline for parking management, mainly the 2012 parking principles. Next tab, please. As you might imagine, we've been closely watching traffic. There we go. As you might imagine, we've been closely watching traffic volumes as we return towards pre-pandemic levels, which obviously drives demand for downtown inventory. This graphic created by the engineering staff from data available at South and Lafayette shows that as of May 2023, we have fully returned to pre-pandemic numbers for the summer, which is great in a lot of ways, but it also does cause us to revisit a number of pre-pandemic challenges. Excuse me. For example, summer of 2023, the division has allocated roughly 8% of its high-demand A-zone inventory for restaurant seating. Additionally, the loss of 300 spaces at the Hanover Garage for its renovation has definitely had an adverse effect. To help with this, the division has opened the upper and lower lots at the Federal Building, accessed off of Bow Street, adding 83 spaces for additional inventory, and simultaneously used economic incentives to relocate roughly 250 monthly parkers from Hanover down to Foundry, so that we would have a little bit less impact from the lost space. Importantly, though, with everything going on at McIntyre, we do anticipate having to relinquish the 83 spaces coming into the summer, so we're going to lose that. The division is pleased to report that continued strong participation in the Foundry's Downtown Workforce Program. We currently have 359 enrollees. The program generates roughly $8,200 a month through the sales of about 2,733 parking sessions, which is roughly 91 per day. So notably, the length of stay at the Hanover Garage is about 3.5 hours, which indicates shopping and dining behavior, where the length of stay at Foundry Garage is 7 and almost 8 hours. So it's a workforce garage. So it's nice to know that. So additionally, many of you guys are familiar with the Park Mobile smartphone app, which offers the convenience of paying from anywhere without having to go to a physical meter, and also incorporates a communication feature that allows users to extend their session from their restaurant seat or wherever they may be.
Are you still on this time?
Yeah. The one interesting point about Park Mobile is in February of this year, 5 years to the month after we grassroots launched it, it became the #1 meter in town. So more people use that system than any other meter that we have. So the technology is definitely shifting in that direction and away from the physical meters. Some of you may not be aware, though, that we offer Portsmouth residents a discount for on-street and lot parking through that app. And anybody wants to chat about that later, we can certainly talk about how that works and continue to get that message out. We did a voting drive the last voting day. Went to all 5 wards and handed out flyers, and we signed up several hundred people doing it that way. So we're trying to continue to get that message out. The program's been in place for quite some time, but it's still unknown by some. Sure. So presently, the city is engaged with Desmond Design Management, a national firm specializing in performing holistic reviews of municipal parking systems with a view to advising as to procedure and policy updates. Our process does include input from a working group consisting of downtown business owners, developers, and citizens in an effort to put the public voice in the process as well. Information on the progress of the effort, including the RFP and a number of presentations, can be found at this location here. And I've got some copies of this presentation if anybody wants to take that with you. So focus points on this effort include, in part, an assessment of the city's current inventory, zoning ordinances, the pipeline of development projects already approved or late in the approval process, and a future needs assessment. Additionally, the team is performing a deep dive into current parking division operational policies as they relate to industry best practices, and the pricing structure as it pertains to supporting Portsmouth Park One's 3-hour turn and walkability philosophies. I'm assuming people are going to want to chat about that. So that's the end of my short presentation. If you guys have questions or want to discuss, feel free, of course.
Question, I think you had 359 employee parking program. Are they all housed at Foundry or some in High Hanover?
That program only exists at Foundry. What it does is it's you go in and you buy a $10 session or a 10-hour session for $3, and you get a sticker. And you go into the garage, you pull out your ticket. On your way out, you put the sticker down. It lets you out for free because you've paid in advance.
Good. So if Foundry was built for 700 capacity,
600.
600. So we're running 60% there, just on employees.
About. And we've got several hundred monthlies as well.
So what is the usage at Foundry, month to month?
About 50 to 60% at this point. We anticipate that to jump considerably when the construction that's underway right now is completed.
It'll jump?
I think so.
Or it'll fall?
No, it'll go up.
With all the open projects, with all the
The
new
usership will
construction
go
that will
up.
come online.
Oh, okay.
The open space will go down, yeah.
I thought you meant High Hanover when that finishes.
Fortunately, when the construction is wrapping up, High Hanover should be well done and back to full capacity.
I'm kind of fascinated with, especially with the move to the new Park Mobile, fascinated by the data that you guys must be crunching. So what kind of information are you gleaning from this data to make decisions, just mainly out of pure interest, but just information.
Well, with specifically to Park Mobile, you're seeing people move away from using the standalone meters. So the long-term decision would be to discontinue the use of standalone meters. They are expensive. You pay a software cost, and I also pay the credit card fees to move the money from your card to the bank. So, and they're antiquated as well. So fewer people are comfortable using them. Some people don't like to have the touch experience any longer after COVID. And more youngsters are on the road, and they are right here. So.
And does that kind of change how the meter maids are doing does it change a little bit of their job at all?
No, we've been pay by plate for a while, and what the system does, the Park Mobile and the Calais systems, both, they warehouse the plate data of live active parking sessions in one place. And so they platform that. The query device will go to that database and say, hey, I'm looking for this plate. And it'll say, you've got a parking session from Calais State 5, or you've got a parking session from Park Mobile Zone 1583. And yes, you're good to go, and then they just move on. They're not allowed to see how much time is left on it or anything. They just go. Because that leads to people hanging around. It's called vulturing, so we don't allow that.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's interesting to see just the amount of usage. So the other habit you see when somebody makes it all the way back to a meter, they just get in their car and leave. But if you're sitting at a restaurant, the coffee's not there yet, and you get the buzz and it says, hey, you're running out of time, you're going to extend your time. So the Park Mobile sessions run about 32% higher on revenue per transaction.
Does that also increase? I know after a certain time you pay more money, but at meters you can't obviously do that because you don't know if it's the same car. So does that increase revenue per?
You can do that with the meters, because you're paying by plate. So when you walk up to a Calais device, the tall ones, you punch in your plate first, and it'll check to see if your plate's already got an active session, and it will know to add time at whatever hour rate you're supposed to.
But not the on-street ones, right? Like those.
The little singles, you can still use Park Mobile there, but that meter is for that one space.
And is the goal to kind of antiquate those out of the system?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's very few left now, right?
I've got about 180 of them left, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was 250 or so last year, so we're chipping away. Some of them we're replacing with Park Mobile signs and have had no issues with that. And some of them, for example, larger areas like Russell Street, we replaced with 2 Calais, one on either side, and got rid of 22 of those meters. And those meters run $5 a month, and I have to pay 13 cents a transaction to run through. So yeah, and that company's hard to work with, so. Yes, ma'am.
What is do you have an overall percentage of occupancy for spaces? Are we running at 100% or what's?
Running over in a lot of.
That's what I was thinking. You
Yeah.
can resell the same.
Yeah, so what you see is, and the way I describe this kind of like the heat index, we see anywhere between 130 and 150% occupancy. You have, somebody might come in and pay for 3 hours and leave in 2 hours, and then somebody will immediately just drop into that spot and pay again. And so the device will see an overlap. And the reason you say 130%, not just 100, is because you compare that to the heat index. We know it's 100 degrees, but it feels like 115 because of other factors. Well, at 100% occupancy, you're driving down the street. Here's the store you want to go to. There's no parking, but somebody pulls out a space 10 cars down. Well, we can walk a little bit. But 130%, there's 6 cars in front of you waiting to take that space. And so you're just around and around and around. That's why we try to encourage people to go to the garages, park once, and walk in.
And one other question. Do you have data on the states that the license plates are from to indicate whether they're New Hampshire versus not? You don't
No.
capture-
Well, what I do have is because we have a fairly significant discount for residents using the Park Mobile app, I do have resident and non-resident data because they're charged differently in the system. And we currently run about 4% residents using the system.
4.
That's all?
Oh, 4.
That assumes they've got the discount though.
Well, that's true, but it's also the #1 meter system we're using now.
No,
And
but-
we have hundreds and hundreds of signups.
Meaning
just
there are
last year.
residents parking that aren't taking advantage
Right.
of the program,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
where the
There's
outreach.
that, and you've also got a demographic that has been trained to take other modes. They walk in, they scooter in, and they bicycle in, and that's very positive because we do have an inventory problem. For example, I was in Ward 1 myself, and nobody cared to take a flyer because they all live real close. I walk in, I got it again and again. Ward 3, I had to bring him stacks of papers from Ward 3. And I went out there and finished his session for him, and everybody wanted one. So
Yeah.
it's just about the further out you go. But yeah, it runs about 4%, and that's been consistent since we started the app.
Andy, you had a question next.
Yeah, I had 2 questions. One is I think I've been through this once, but is the discount automatic, or is it sign up when you sign up for Park Mobile?
No, well, you have to come and
You have to
prove,
come
you have to
in.
prove residency. So, and the reason being is everybody becomes a resident when you start giving stuff away.
Right.
So once every 2 years, you come down, and we're not allowed to take copies of anything, which is actually a positive because it forces the resident to engage, show your driver's license with the Portsmouth address, show your vehicle registration with the Portsmouth address, and a water bill or something like that. Then your plate goes on a different list, and it gets sent to the
I think I've actually done that once, but it was more than 2 years
How
ago.
often do you have to
And
renew
the other
your
question,
You have to
question
renew- I'm sorry, you have to prove your residency every 2 years.
Right. Otherwise, somebody moves to Rye and they get cheap parking forever.
Do you get a notice for that? Do they send you a notice?
Send you an email.
They do, okay.
He's waiting for
It's
that.
All the
encrypted
Portsmouth
and you
people
can't
like-
read it.
Want to make sure that.
It's encrypted.
Comes from me.
This is from Everett.
I have a question. How programmable is Park Mobile? I'm thinking that we have, we're removing some 15-minute parking spaces for construction. Can you program Park Mobile to have 15-minute parking spaces in a place that doesn't have that?
So none of the 15s are in Park Mobile.
Yeah.
And the reason being is we have a 1 hour minimum on credit cards because you lose money on a 15-minute transaction. People dip credit cards into those 15-minute little meters, we lose money on that.
What is the hourly rate now?
On the A zone, it's $2 for the first 3 hours, each of the first 3 hours, and then $5 after that. So we didn't put the 15s in Park Mobile at all.
Right. So what if there was a 30-minute zone or a 30-minute? I'm just trying to think of ways to get turnover and also maybe a little more time for people to go in and buy something rather than just, not just for coffee, but for, you could go into a store in half an hour and buy something. But 15 minutes is a little tight.
Right. Well, first of all, you can do that now. Secondly, the city's stated goal is a 3-hour turn. And the reason we do $2, $2, $2, and then $5 after that, previously we had a punitive way to get them out of space in 3 hours. We'd slap them with a ticket. But we invited them here. They come all the way from Boston, we're going to slap them in the face if they don't leave fast enough. Seems a little silly. So we decided to give them an economic incentive to turn the space by charging $5 at that 4th hour. 91% still turn in the 4th hour voluntarily, or 3rd hour, at the end of the 3rd hour voluntarily. So we're seeing success with that program. It just may be that the price structure in general is not conducive to pushing demand out to the garages like it should be, but that'll be a discussion that comes after the parking study comes through.
Yeah. So what does someone pay for a 15-minute parking space right now?
Quarter hour is what's 50 cents?
50 cents. So Vince, to your point, Counselor, if they have to pay for an hour, it's $2 for that half an hour if we don't have that space, right? Today they pay 50 cents. So that's the...
But then you need those,
And
you need a coin machine.
And the spaces, they're there. They take coins. But
Talking to phasing them out.
And you can't enforce the spaces either.
Yeah.
They earn about 15 to 20% of what they should. They're either abused on one end or the other, or people pull in and they pull directly out because they didn't see the sign. We've been putting cameras around watching the behavior on the 15s, so we'll have some data on that later this summer.
Two more questions.
For my apartment.
Is there any reason why we don't register residents for the program when they're registering their vehicles?
The tax office and we don't share data.
Okay.
That has to do with legalities.
Okay. And then the second question, any insight on like number of parking tickets issued with the Park Mobile system in place as opposed to before? From a revenue perspective, is the parking, sort of the authorized parking revenue offsetting what the ticket revenue was, or any correlation between the two?
Certainly we make a lot more on meters. When we changed from a $15 ticket to a $35 ticket because we moved from a $6 maximum stay to a $46 maximum stay. It made sense to really go to 50, but they pushed me back to 35. So we're writing about 35% fewer tickets, but the revenue is higher. The new system we put in place in November is far more robust than the last one. It's able to take people with multiple vehicles and combine them as to one. And so people who might get several tickets on 3 or 4 different cars and not ever escalate into the second or third tier of fine structure are now finding themselves in that realm. So a lot of collections are happening.
I also think the $35 ticket is enough of a incentive to extend your Park Mobile session extra. You know, if I'm going downtown and if I have an hour meeting, I'm putting in 90 minutes at a minimum because I don't want to give Ben $35. And that's exactly how I think of it. Every time I'm like, no, Ben Fletcher, you're not getting my money. And I pay the extra half hour. And I think that is one of the factors that drives that.
Yeah, more likely to
100%
extend
plus.
just in case.
Right.
As
$35, big ticket.
But the ability to extend from anywhere on your app is so functional because
Yeah.
you realize you're waiting somewhere longer than you thought, and you don't have to run
Absolutely.
back to the meter to feed the meter. You can just do it on the
Yeah, no more
phone. That's
running out in
fantastic.
the rain with a sack of quarters like it's 1951.
I have a question. Could you update us on the Hanover garage renovation, the timeline, and
They seem to think they're on the timeline that was the schedule, which was a 3-year project. I think they're scheduled for I think the last update they gave is maybe 2 months beyond what the original finish date was. For me, construction projects, I don't ever speculate.
We
So-
are in year 2.
We're in year 2 of 3, right? So there'll be one more year of this.
More year for you.
On paper, taking 300 spaces offline, a third of it. Yeah, a third of it.
Ben, do you have any data on EV usage?
Yeah, actually, I've got all the data you could possibly want. I'll
Give us a short
happy to send it to you. The system has 7 machines and 7 plugs on 5 machines. So we have a double plug here, we have a double plug at Hanover, and we have 3 singles at Foundry. We run about 8 transactions a day through the system, and about a 3.5-hour stay. That's also priced similarly to the parking, where it's $1.25 for each of the first 3 hours of charging, or 4 hours actually, and then it goes up to $3 after that to encourage turnover. 4 hours is the typical time a level 2 will charge a standard Nissan Leaf or Chevy Bolt. So that's why we set that pricing that way. So you're seeing economic incentive to turn and burn the space, and that's what your length of stay in that space charging is about that.
I'm curious about data like usage this year versus 2 years ago.
It's creeping up. It's not exploding. I have 3 years, 4 years worth of data. I have graphs and all that. I didn't know what you guys would want to see. The stack would have been this high.
Ben has data.
Bridge Street. So there are EV stations slated to go into Bridge Street. I've had those devices for some time now in storage at Foundry. We're waiting on electrical infrastructure. I guess some custom pieces had to be created or ordered and made for that. There's a big backlog in that industry, apparently. The last time I talked to Jim Dumont and Dave DeFosis on that, they still did not know when we were going to get what was necessary to complete the infrastructure and be able to install those machines in working fashion.
We rebuilt the Bridge Street lot last season, and with the intent of putting in 2 chargers with double plugs. Right.
But then is the usage, you said the usage isn't exploding, is that a result of demand, or is that a result of someone plugs their car in and then leaves for 5 hours and it only charges for 2 hours and then it's sitting there? So how do you know, how does the driver, how do you improve the rotation?
So the pricing helps with that. We're seeing rotation based on, just like we do in parking, where you're seeing the turnover right at that 4th hour, where the car is charged and it begins to get more expensive to leave the car on the charger. And then they vacate the
Well,
space.
let's say it's charged, fully charged, but it's still sitting there. Because I apologize, because I don't understand all the intricacies of this. If the car's there, it's charged, it's fully charged, but you've left and you've gone to a meeting and you're up 4 hours. Only took 2. So is he taking, that person's taking the usage of the meter of the charger then?
So the systems have a self-reporting feature where people tap in to complain about things like that. Hey, this guy's been here all day and he's not even charging, kind of thing.
Right.
We can technically write them a citation, but it's pretty difficult to know whether a car's done charging. So we kind of rely on them to turn the space over, knowing that other users like them need it, And we rely on the system of self-reporting, people saying, this guy's been sitting at Hanover 2 all week long and he's not charging or something like that. We would get those messages.
So
I would think that would be an
Address it after the
industry-wide
fact.
issue. Tom,
Yeah.
you're kind of plugged into that, right? Not to, yeah.
No pun intended.
Well, but I think that's probably true. I don't know how much what degree of EV chargers are owned by municipalities that tie it into parking spaces. I would know, I don't know where we would get that data.
just to follow up, is it with the usage, is it an inventory constraint? So are we running at a very high occupancy, or is there typically availability that's just not being used?
There's pretty typically availability that's
Okay.
not being used. So the highest use is over here where the parking's free.
Yep.
Obviously at Hanover, you have to pay to park as well, because it's two different products. We get that a lot. Why can't I get free electricity? I'm paying to park. And I'm like, well, you go into the ballpark, you still got to buy a beer. You know, it's two different things. So,
Separate revenue streams, absolutely. I get it. I follow that.
Your tax on the charges.
Still 30% is down, 30-some% is down in Hanover. So that's a very popular one, but it has two plugs. And you can go on the dashboard anytime and see, you know, how many out of 7 are in use. So it's usually 2 or 3 out of 7 in use when I peek at it.
That's helpful. In one of your slides, you had a percentage of is it Zone A parking that's offline for outdoor dining? Do you
About
have
8%.
8%. So despite that, it sounds like revenues overall remain higher year over year. And so there's been less usage for outdoor dining this year. So I guess it might be helpful for us before.
So there are fewer spaces given to outdoor dining because we charged for it this year, and that was more than some folks wanted to invest. So it's not the 9 or 10% it was last year. So there are some spaces we gained back. The 83 spaces at well, actually that doesn't count because that money isn't ours. The use of the Park Mobile app is probably the primary driver of additional revenues because more people, you're more apt to add time to that thing than you are when you go back to the meter and your car's sitting right there and ready to go. So even though we have fewer spaces, there's a higher revenue per transaction with the use of that app. So we're kind of fortunate there.
Okay. And is that, is there color also not only on the income side but on occupancy, the sort of usage of space, the heat index that's up year over year? So those 8 spaces might be displaced, but overall we're still using more parking and it's not been a detriment. I think that's would be helpful for us to understand.
So, I mean, anytime you take a low inventory, high demand situation and reduce the inventory, you're going to have, more friction.
Yep.
So fortunately, we have the Foundry Garage. Unfortunately, the price structure is not so much different on the street than in the Foundry to actually convince some users to go down there and use it and walk in. And that's a discussion we'll have when the experts that we've hired to help us look at the next 10 years, come in with their report.
Andy?
Another question is, so the city already has set up a bill pay system for several things, registrations and fines and that kind of thing. Has there been any discussion, or is there any way to take MasterCard and Visa out of the loop with the Park Mobile and pay direct, pay debit, EFT, some other way of getting rid of those credit card charges? And maybe starting with residents first and whatever.
Well, the good news is I changed up our credit card gateway processing vendor a few years ago, and to the tune of about $180,000 a year, because they charge us differently than they used to. There's an upfront, there's a flat fee. Anybody's got a restaurant knows there's a flat fee you pay, and there's also a percentage of fee you pay. The previous situation was a higher flat fee and a tiny percentage of a really small number. We're doing thousands of transactions a day. Now we have a much smaller upfront fee and a slightly higher percentage. Plus, we're getting a discount on specific types of debit cards that happen to be 40% of our usage. We get a 25% discount, kind of behind the scenes, that's specific to this vendor. So we're really happy with that. I don't know if you're getting away from credit cards altogether unless the city decides to platform some sort of payment ability to accept direct. I know that Park Mobile, at least it did take PayPal. I think they're getting away from that, but I know that it's not platformed as a wallet, at least not yet.
Right. I'm using a lot of quarters. I'm using hundreds of quarters because I'm a 15-minute parker. guy, and it usually works out fine. I think Irving has a program like that. I might be wrong with their gas cards bypassing through.
Wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, you're talking about a much larger network than City of Portsmouth. Yeah.
Just take it out of your checking account.
We can all Venmo Karen.
Ann, did you have a question?
When does McIntyre go back to the feds? October? I'm going to miss that lot.
Oh, you opened it.
You opened the
Having
can of
such a Good
worms.
Friday, too.
We currently have a license agreement with the federal government to use the spaces and maintain the building through October 13th. And we asked for that date way back when, thinking outdoor dining would end around Columbus Day, and that would make sense. As you'll read in the paper today, the soft close for the auction is slated for September 27th. I've asked the question, does the GSA anticipate extending our license agreement? They haven't gotten back to us yet, so that may alter the date beyond which we can use the parking field. So we would like to use the parking field as long as we can. I think the GSA appreciates that we've been maintaining the property, and they haven't had to. So stay tuned on that.
I don't know.
Any other questions?
Just to follow up on that, is there an option out there for an Easy Pass type of model for parking?
So that's license plate recognition, which is not legal for commercial use in New Hampshire and I think Utah were the last two states that don't allow it for commercial use. You have it at the turnpike where you drive through and it just snaps your plate.
Right.
And I think that law is supposed to sunset in January of 27. I don't know if somebody's going to come out and try to extend it or not. It'll change the game once you have LPR, certainly when it comes to enforcement, but we can't do that now.
And how would that work?
How would which work?
This model.
So you'd still use the meters as you normally would, but enforcement would change, and the garages would likely have cameras on the in and out, and you would utilize, for monthly parkers, they would just drive in and drive out, the gates would be gone. So I did some technical installs in Honolulu that had this element in them that were pretty cool. Mixed-use residentials that worked out pretty well, but they all had an element of paying a meter for folks that were coming for transient parking.
Could you not use the Park Mobile app or some like app as the identifier for the vehicle as opposed to license plate scanning?
We don't scan the plate. We have to be careful with that one. We're allowed to optically read it, but we cannot scan it because then you're getting into LPR territory. It's important to know we don't keep any data other than ABC 123, Blue Honda. We don't know the person's driving record. We don't know if they're a fugitive. We don't know any of the things the police know when they look up a plate. And we wouldn't when LPR came into place either. It's just a marker. So that is what Park Mobile uses as a marker. It's the plates. The plates are unique to every vehicle in the country, and unique numbers and unique owners. So it's the best way to mark a particular vehicle.
Excellent.
Thanks, Ben.
No slings or arrows today.
This group loves parking.
Yeah.
Love parking and talking about it and asking questions and understanding it. Yes.
Always about parking.
Actually, Ben, I have one parking related. Any further conversation concerning the Blue Bites, those sort of on-demand bicycles we had for a few years? And
Most cities that have those subsidize those pretty heavily. We were under the same kind of situation where we were subsidizing that heavily. COVID kind of ended that for them. They just kind of folded. I don't even think they picked up their racks in a lot of cases. I'm not looking for more. We didn't have much usage of it. I was kind of disappointed that we didn't have much usage of it. I thought it was kind of a cool idea. But people would rather either walk or drive around in circles until they find a space.
Can we implement electric scooters?
Scooters?
The birds.
Stay tuned. There's a,
Get Betty's looking.
Those end up all over the street.
Yeah.
San Fran
I
dealt
know
with
it.
that.
I know it.
It was wild when they brought those out.
there's a new business in town, mobility as a service. So stay tuned as that evolves, like subscription to e-mobile devices, e-mobility devices, whether they be scooters, bikes, etc. So stay tuned.
San Francisco was big with they had an e-bike rental program, and it was cool. You just plugged it in. You actually went to your Uber app, and you toggled down from car to bike, and it would show you on the map. It would show you where the bike corrals were. You went over, you put a code in, it unlocked it, you rode. You charged you $2 right away on your Uber app for your bike, and then you left it in another corral, and then you went out and restaurant or whatever. You came back, and they may not be there, but you'd click on the app again, and it would show you where bikes were available again, and you'd walk a block or two. And they're all orange bikes. They're pretty easy to find, and you click on the app, and it'd open up, and away you'd go again. It was very cool.
Cool.
I have a question about parking on the sidewalk, scooters and bikes and stuff. Just
I've seen some.
if these things are increasing, what's going to happen with the sidewalks with that?
We may end up having to revisit it. Right now, scooters under 50 cc's are allowed to park free on sidewalks as long as they're tight to the building and a wheelchair can get by. That's the general rule, and not near a nice monument like the fire station statue or a working device like a fire hydrant. As long as you're not doing that, then we're okay. It's one of the things a lot of people that live downtown do. They drive the scooters in because they know they're not adding to the congestion. They can park for free. They can drive it anywhere they want, put it up against the wall.
Is it the same for bicycles?
Yes, but bicycles tend to get stolen if you do that, so we have corrals for them.
Not in Portsmouth.
You don't have parking meters to lock them to anymore.
Right, that's right.
Right.
I lock it to a Park Mobile app.
Yeah. Great.
Well, appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks, man.
This
Good
was
stuff.
great,
Thanks,
thank
Ben.
you.
Yeah, very informative.
Well, that's the agenda for today. We can reopen public comment if anyone wants to come up and speak. Steve? Great.
Our public.
Otherwise, just confirming our next meeting is Friday, October 6th, back on our typical Friday, first Friday of the month schedule through the end of the year. If anyone doesn't have any other business, would entertain a motion to adjourn. A little early today. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.